I had what I thought was a pretty limited skill set. I knew something about standing up to speak, and I understood something about the communication process, so that seemed like a natural place to go to try to form a company. So I started very simply out of an extra bedroom, focused on, at the beginning, helping people when they were dealing with the media, and then expanded that into now helping people in front of live audiences, helping them with their speaking skills as well as their media.
Well, I have a bachelor's degree in communication studies and a master's degree in communication studies, both from ASU West. And while I was getting my master's degree, I applied for the Legislative and Government Internship Program. And I was accepted as an intern with the Arizona Association of Counties, and I've been with them ever since.
After being a firefighter for about 6 years, I became a paramedic. And then I became an engineer, driving and operating trucks. But the position I'm in now is in public affairs, which deals with community involvement and public education.
People oftentimes are very uncomfortable with the idea of being in front of an audience or somehow being in front of people that they don't know. All of that is a function many times of people just not getting a chance to do it very often. It takes them a while to get used to it or comfortable, and for the most part, I find that people who do it more often or get a chance to practice and really prepare, they're usually able to get over those fears.
Once you get that comfort, and I believe that you can receive that comfort from getting education, and we've got great professors at ASU that are able to educate you, and that's what their specialty is. They've been doing it much longer than I have. But I don't think it's something, if it is something that people fear, then they fear it because they don't understand it. And with, I believe, the proper education, you can get comfortable with it, and then practicing it over and over again. And the more you do it, the better you get.
I think nonverbal communication is actually incredibly important, and one of the things when I interview for interns, legislative interns for our association, one of the things I look for is someone who is a good reader of the room, someone who can tell me the pulse of a legislative committee hearing beyond what people were saying into the microphone. So it plays a huge role in what I do every day, and I wouldn't be as good at my job if I wasn't good at wading through the nonverbal.
Nothing to me is better than face-to-face interaction via communication. I love it, being able to interact with people, and really, because I'm so into reading body language and trying to comprehend and understand exactly what they're saying. With a text message or an email, it's very hard to see sarcasm. If people are being sarcastic or facetious, whatever they're doing in these emails. But I feel that face-to-face is important, but also not just in one-on-one communication, but also group communication, mass communication, reading your audience. Are they distracted by something? Are they seeing something? Are they retaining things? Nonverbal communication plays a much larger role than just the verbal communication in itself.
All of that is hugely important, and it's overlooked too often. People need to understand that in many ways, most people feel like body language ends up being an even bigger part of the equation than the words that somebody uses. So understanding that, valuing that, making sure that you factor that into anything that you do communication-wise is extremely important.
I would say earlier on in my career, I would say that not understanding the value of argumentation, something that I've really taken light to would be, when you're interacting with a group of people and there may be arguing, and arguing doesn't have to be viewed as a bad thing, but more so a positive, as in, if people are open-minded, and I guess I would say that I wasn't so open-minded in communication. What I mean is that argumentation can be great. If you and I are arguing about a different topic, hey, you may be able to teach me something.
Well, there have been times when I've been wrong. When, a legislator has asked me a question and I've given them the wrong answer. And the only way to rectify that is to, once I find out I'm wrong, is to apologize, explain that it wasn't intentional, and apologize in person to that member, because this is an industry of bridge building, and you never want to burn that bridge with someone, because someone who's against your issue today might be for another of your issues tomorrow. So I've definitely had to do that mea culpa a couple of times, and I can tell you that there are some legislators who have really appreciated that, because oftentimes people don't apologize when they're wrong, and I think apologies are important.
Interpersonal communications, as far as interacting day to day with coworkers, that would be something, at a fire station, you're around these people for 24 hours at a time. How well are you going to interact and get along with them? You may be the greatest firefighter in the world, or you think you are, but how are you as a person? How are you going to communicate and interact with us? Can we trust you?
Understanding the audience and making sure they stay on top of who the audience is. Making sure that they take advantage of the very beginning of a conversation or an interaction or a speech. Make sure those first words are engaging and get the audience's attention. Don't overlook that, because people are making their decisions so quickly. And making sure that they incorporate the body language issues and make sure they understand all of those things, besides just having some nice graphs or charts or slides.
In my business, sometimes I only get 30 seconds with a member in an elevator riding from floor 1 to floor 3, and I have to explain the entire purpose of my bill and why it's important in that amount of time. So being able to formalize my thoughts back at my office, written down, letting me go over an outline perhaps, and then being able to translate that into a 30-second attack on that legislator in the elevator is incredibly important. If you can do that, you're employable in any industry. I don't care if it's the legislature, if it's working, in some corporate office, if it's in marketing. Being able to convey those ideas as succinctly and as accurately as possible is invaluable. I think social media is a double-edged sword, quite frankly. I think there's lots of benefits. For example, in our job, it's very easy for us to reach a huge number of people with a Twitter blast or something on our website, as opposed to having to send out printed newsletters, 10 years ago. However, I do think it removes people from the human element associated with communications. And since communications was my focus of study when I was in school, I kind of missed that interaction. So I think it works both ways.
No doubt about it that social media offers an opportunity in that video and telling your story via camera is something that is possible now in a way that it never has been before, because the accessibility of portable cameras and inexpensive equipment makes all of that far more accessible than it ever has been. The downside is there's sometimes a lack of connection when technology takes over for what would normally be face-to-face conversation. So there's a good side to that and a bad side.
Yeah, Phoenix Fire Department, we have a Facebook page. We also have a Twitter page. And we're looking at another avenue in which it's another social media program where it just works with the neighborhoods surrounding fire stations. It like singles out neighborhoods. But social media, to put it in a broad spectrum, is mass communications. We're able to hit large amounts of people with information without the cost of advertising on a commercial or television programs where it's hundreds of thousands of dollars for commercial time. Whereas if we want to present a message or a safety or awareness or an upcoming event that we're doing, we can post it right on Facebook and those followers will see that.
I don't think there's a way to get around the value of communication because, well, first of all, because communication is just so broad. social media is communication. So even if we're moving in towards a more social media driven world, that's still by definition communication. There's no way to get around that.
I think because of all the technology, we're in a situation where someone who is a good communicator has an advantage, an even bigger advantage. Because if they can engage somebody in social media or electronically somehow, and then deliver on that in person, they really have a tremendous opportunity and really have a chance of being successful in a big way.
I believe that communication is increasing because of technology. Yes, it is just different means of communication. We're looking at cell phones. Yes, we can talk about text messaging, but how about the messages you're writing to someone? That's still communication. A phone call is still communication. Yes, you have audio calls and robot voices and all that fun stuff, but still, yes, we are heading that direction, but communication is a necessity. In order for us to be successful, we need to be able to communicate well. And it's a beautiful degree that you can pick which angle you want to go. What classes are more intriguing to you? What do you think you would be more geared towards? And there's so many. Is it working with children? Is it working with adults? Is it public speaking? Is it media? I've taken public speaking classes. I've taken acting in front of the camera. And it was great learning about camera etiquette and how they work and what the people who are filming looking for. It's helped me so much in just the media stuff. But it's amazing the type of education and how broad it can be, but how it can be used on an everyday basis. And that is why I'm grateful.
I think somebody with some advanced or well refined communication skills actually has more of an advantage today because of the emphasis on technology. Anything you can do that demonstrates a comfort and an ease with speaking with people one-on-one, being in front of live audiences, all of that sort of thing for somebody who's in their 20s, I think that's a big advantage.
When it comes to a communications major, I have friends that are working in the movie industry that are talent agents using their communications degree in that field. I have friends who are professors, of course, in the field of communications around the country. I have friends who are writing for TV shows using their communications degree to make us laugh in the evenings on sitcoms. I have obviously friends who are in the lobbying field who have communications degrees. Lawyers started out with communications degrees before they went to law school. So many. I mean, the sky's the limit. It really is.
Focusing on audience is extremely important. Focusing on the beginning of your message and how you can get that idea across quickly and succinctly is also something that I think is important. Too many people try to explain how the watch is made when all they really need to do is describe what time it is, and they'll get the job done. And then I always have to remind people to smile. It's just something that they don't think of, or they're not aware that their face is very, very serious and sullen. And you always miss something along the way if you don't remember to smile a little bit.
I would just say, speaking to ASU West in particular, I cannot imagine a more rewarding educational experience than being in the comm department at ASU West. I went there at a time when the campus was smaller than it is now, but the graduate school experience in particular that I had in that department is second to none. And I know from talking to some of my communications colleagues around the country, the program may be small, but it is well respected throughout the country, and there are days I wish that I could go back. I cried when I left. It was great.
I would say communication is imperative in our everyday lives. Whether it is face-to-face, public speaking, media, text message, emails, writing, however your means of communication is, if you're good at it, respect it and understand it, and continue to want to learn about the changes in communications, you can be successful in whatever you do.